Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thank you very much for starting your morning with us. We are happy you're here. We're going to begin our show in Washington, where President Trump delivered a combative primetime address last night. The president touted his accomplishments and repeatedly blasted his predecessor, Joe Biden, for most of the country's current problems.
With approval ratings slumping, the president's 18-minute speech at the White House mostly focused on the economy and immigration. He made a wide variety of claims, some of which were misleading, some were outright false. Here's a little bit of what he said.
11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it. When I took office, inflation was the worst in 48 years, and some would say in the history of our country, which caused prices to be higher than ever before, making life unaffordable for millions and millions of Americans. This happened during a Democrat administration, and it's when we first began hearing the word affordability. Starting on day one, I took immediate action to stop the invasion of our southern border. For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible. We're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our treasury for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast. 1 year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail, totally failed. Now, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. I'm also taking on the gigantic health insurance companies that have gotten rich on billions of dollars of money that should go directly to the people. The money should go to the people. That's you. So they can buy their own health insurance, which will give far better benefits at much lower cost. We're putting America first, and we are making America great again. Very simple. We are making America great again. Tonight, after 11 months, our border is secure. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong.
In a few moments, we are going to get reaction from lawmakers with NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona. Before that, let's bring in our White House correspondent Monica Alba. So, Monica, in some ways, this was a typical address from President Trump boasting about achievements while criticizing Democrats. Why did the president want to make this speech in primetime in the first place? Just what was the overarching message?
Well, Joe and Savannah, I think you hinted at it there in the introduction. This is a president who has been on defense specifically when it comes to the economy. He's been incredibly defensive. You heard him there talking about the fact that he believes he inherited a, quote, mess and that now he is trying to fix it. So he was really trying to place a lot of blame on his predecessor in a really high-profile prime-time address. This is something that the president often talks about in his political events or in a rally speech, but to do it from the White House in the way that he did is really trying to hammer home the way that he views this ahead potentially of the 2026 midterms and trying to frame this idea that, again, there's a disconnect between the way a majority of Americans are feeling about affordability concerns and the way that this president and this White House are viewing it. So the White House argued that he wanted to come out and give his own take on that and tell Americans essentially to be patient. His message was, you are eventually going to feel the benefits of what he says are his own perceived accomplishments on the economy this year. And so he was telling people it's just going to take some time. That was his main message last night.
Monica, we mentioned the president made some of these questionable or false statements during this speech. Let's fact check it. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, and this was actually a shorter speech, right, than what we typically see. So in 18 minutes, there's a lot of context that's required to really explain some of these comments that were either not factual or misleading. Let's start when we look at something like prices. The president specifically called out the price of eggs, saying that they've fallen 87%, but in reality, it's closer to 43%. So a little bit misleading there. And what's really important on the prices point is that we don't have a complete picture of government data because of the government shutdown. So we're missing a couple of months there. But those statistics are based on the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. When we move on to immigration, for instance, the president said that 25 million people crossed over the border or entered the country illegally, he said, in the Biden administration. In reality, again, according to government data from CBP, it's somewhere between 7 and 10 million. So that was a figure that we couldn't find any factual basis for. Something that the White House has been touting that is true is the fact that gas prices are coming down. They are falling. The president cited some statistics about a national average that's a little bit lower than the national average that we could find, but that was true. And then when you look at something like drug prices, the president touted the fact that he's been making these deals with drug makers, saying that really these prices have fallen dramatically, but we haven't actually seen the price reductions. Customers haven't been able to benefit from them yet, since we don't have the exact details on how some of those deals were made. So that impact could come still, but it's not a reality in the way that the president touted it quite yet.
Yeah, he said drug prices cut 400, 500%, which is mathematically impossible, actually. Monica, we should also talk about the president announcing this holiday bonus for U.S. service members. He's calling it a warrior dividend. What's this all about, and how is it going to be paid for?
So this is going to be a one-time payment that essentially, according to the president, will come somehow from tariff revenue. That is what he said last night, though we have asked the White House for more details on that, because typically with such a large figure, something like that is going to be more than $2 billion total. That's something that might have to be appropriated by Congress. So we're waiting for more details. But here's how the president explained why he wanted to do this and what the actual amount is.
1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call warrior dividend before Christmas, a warrior dividend in honor of our nation's founding in 1776. We are sending every soldier $1,776.
So obviously a symbolic amount there, but something that stood out to me and that was interesting, guys, is the president has been talking about Venezuela so much recently over the course of the last few days and weeks, but that was not something that was included in the speech, even though he did, of course, praise military members and speak more generally about wanting to take on the war on drugs. Right. Joe and Savannah.
A lot to cover. Monica, thank you.
For more from Washington, let's bring in NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona. Mel, good morning. So how have lawmakers been responding to the president's speech?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Not surprisingly, the reactions have largely fallen along party lines. But I do want to start with Republicans, because they have been pleading with President Trump to focus more on the economy, to highlight his affordability agenda, and to stop dismissing cost concerns as a hoax. And so they largely got what they had been looking for last night with that speech, which was much more polished and at least scripted than what we've seen, especially when Trump has been out on the campaign trail in recent months. So we saw a lot of praise. We saw a lot of Republicans cheering after this speech, including Steve Scalise. He's the #2 Republican. He wrote on social media, in just 11 months, one thing is clear. President Trump is delivering for the American people, from securing the border and keeping deadly drugs out of our country to putting more money in Americans' pockets, unleashing American energy, lowering prices, and restoring peace through strength. POTUS is getting it done. Best part, we're just getting started. Now, it's unclear if that message is going to resonate with voters, but clearly at least Democrats are not buying that message. I do want to read for you part of what Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader, said. He said President Trump's speech showed he lives in a bubble completely disconnected from the reality everyday Americans are seeing and feeling. People are being squeezed harder and harder every day, and tonight Donald Trump took a victory lap. So a little preview there of the likely messaging battles to come as we get closer and closer to the midterms, where affordability, no doubt, is going to take center stage.
And healthcare will no doubt take center stage. And we know, Mel, late last night, the House did pass a healthcare bill. No surprise, it did not include an extension of the Obamacare tax subsidies that are set to expire next week. But I guess this issue is not over. We could now see a vote on this extension in the new year. Tell us more about that.
That's exactly right. I do want to make clear that the House and Senate are both leaving today without having addressed these Obamacare subsidies, which are expiring at the end of the year. But that being said, a group of moderate Republicans did band together with a Democratic-led effort that's going to force a future vote on this issue. It was just a remarkable act of defiance that we saw in the House yesterday. So what this means is that the Speaker of the House now has 7 legislative days to schedule a floor vote on the bill, which is a 3-year clean extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Once that passes the House sometime in January, then it heads to the Senate. But there is a big question about what senators will do because they already rejected a similar proposal earlier this month. So the hope, at least among supporters of this effort, is that the House action combined with the pressure from constituents as they start to feel the real world impacts, it's going to create an environment where senators are more inclined to come together to cut a bipartisan deal.
Mel, we also want to ask you some other news from Congress. The Senate passing a $900 billion defense policy bill yesterday. What's in it?
The core of that package includes funding for military infrastructure projects, but there are some other key provisions as well, including a nearly 4% pay raise for the troops, as well as a provision that would withhold Pete Hegseth, that's the secretary's budget, his travel budget, unless they turn over the unedited boat strike video on that Venezuela boat from September 2nd. So they want the committees to actually be in possession of that unedited footage, even though multiple committees have seen it. They say now it's on them to actually turn it over and transmit it to Congress.
All right, Mel Zanona, thank you very much.
Let's stay on Capitol Hill. Former special counsel Jack Smith was in the hot seat there yesterday. Lawmakers grilled him about his investigation into President Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 election.
Smith was subpoenaed to testify as part of a Republican-led investigation into the 2020 election interference case that the president sought publicly. In the closed-door hearing, Smith defended his prosecutorial decisions. He said his team found, quote, proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump had engaged in a criminal scheme to overturn the election.
NBC News senior justice reporter Ryan Riley joins us now with more on this. Ryan, good morning. So this is a hearing that took place behind closed doors, even though Smith wanted it to happen in public. Tell us more about what he had to say and how Democratic lawmakers are reacting.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what we know from his testimony is that he emphasized that he had a very solid case against Donald Trump and that they could have gotten a conviction in court had this case been allowed to go to trial. But because Donald Trump was elected, this case was dismissed. Under Justice Department precedent, you cannot continue a case against a sitting president. So it wasn't about the merits of the case so much as it was just about the overall Justice Department policy. But, you know, based on that testimony, essentially what you're looking at here is a battle between Republicans who are seeking to undermine this investigation and undercut it, and Jack Smith, who's saying that this was all very warranted and that they did things by the book and correctly. And so, you know, the fact that this wasn't public, that's something that Jack Smith wanted, but that's something that Republicans denied. And I think that Raskin went to the camera and actually talked about this afterwards. Take a listen.
Chairman Jordan made an excellent decision in not allowing Jack Smith to testify publicly, because had he done so, it would have been absolutely devastating to the president and all the president's men involved in the insurrectionary activities of January the 6th. His report speaks for itself in terms of January the 6th and the indictments that were handed down. And the other report should be public. I mean, that's just absolutely aberrational that it's not public.
So thus far, we haven't seen any leaks from Republicans about what exactly happened during this testimony, but I think that's something we could potentially look forward to in the future, Joe.
What has the reaction been like from Republicans and the Trump administration?
Yeah, you know, because of all that was happening yesterday, we haven't seen too much. But usually how the playbook works here, and I think what Jack Smith was sort of anticipating is that they were going to sort of find these selections and selectively bring out various parts of the testimony to sort of churn up controversy about what happened in that hearing. That was sort of the entire playbook, the reason that it's happening behind the scenes. And I think what happened here was you had a situation where Jack Smith sort of got ahead, and at least for this round, we'll see how it plays out in the future. But it seems that Jack Smith came out ahead for at least on the public relations side of this.
Ryan, let's shift gears. We want to ask you about an update related to Jeffrey Epstein. The Justice Department has till tomorrow to publicly release all the files under that law that Congress passed last month, giving them 30 days. But yesterday we saw Epstein's associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, petitioning a federal court to try and overturn her sex trafficking conviction from 2021. She says there's new evidence that shows she didn't get a fair trial. What is this alleged new evidence? Could this complicate the release of the files?
Yeah, I think the most interesting component of this is that it was a pro se filing, meaning that this was something that she did on her own without a lawyer. So it means that she's probably been hitting up the law library at the prison she's being held at. And essentially what she's arguing is that a lot of this new information would have changed the circumstances of her trial. Remember, the Supreme Court has already sort of rejected her request. So this is kind of a last ditch effort to try to get a new trial. And I think that it's to be seen. It remains to be seen whether it will be successful. But generally, these pro se, meaning cases that are brought forward by a defendant themselves, these motions are not usually successful. So we'll see how that plays out. But until we're going to have to wait to see what the courts say about it.
Ryan, quickly before we let you go, another development from yesterday. Dan Bongino announced he'd be leaving his position as deputy director of the FBI in January. As someone who covers federal law enforcement, what more can you tell us about this? What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Dan Bongino behind the scenes. He's not someone who, in between him and Kash Patel, even between those two FBI employees, career FBI employees, are not huge fans of Dan Bongino, and I think that there's been a lot of tension between him and the Justice Department, including with Attorney General Pam Bondi. So we're talking about only 9 months into the job here. He was a very untraditional choice for this position, given that he was a podcaster before he came to this and made a lot of really inflammatory comments about the FBI and accusing them of all sorts of cover-ups. And now he's in a position where he's ready to sort of go back to the podcasting realm and get home to his family.
All right. Ryan Riley, thank you so much.
Well, the son of legendary filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife Michele made his first court appearance in L.A. yesterday since being charged in their murder. Nick Reiner, shown here, we're going to show you, appeared in a blue vest, which means he is under high observation while in custody. That's him in this sketch. He stayed mostly silent during the hearing. He is facing first-degree murder charges, which could make him eligible for the death penalty. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky has been following the story and has the latest from Los Angeles. Morgan, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Nick Reiner remains behind bars today, being held without bail following his first public court appearance in downtown Los Angeles. And we were there inside that room watching his defense team led by known attorney Alan Jackson walk in. And then in the corner of the room, almost hidden from sight, you could see the 32-year-old seated, shackled, and silent. The only words uttered by Nick Reiner during this arraignment hearing were, "Yes, Your Honor," in response to the judge's question that he understood his team was asking to delay his arraignment until January of next year. Authorities say that he right now is still being held behind bars, but we're learning new details about where he was and when. A new surveillance video showing the 32-year-old buying a drink from a gas station just hours after the horrific discovery of his parents' bodies, Rob and Michele Reiner, inside their Brentwood home. A medical examiner's report just released confirmed their cause of death by sharp force objects. That lining up with what we heard from police saying that the murder weapon was, in fact, a knife. And because of that, the charges of first-degree murder could actually be elevated. Now, the maximum sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. But the DA is saying that he has not made that decision at this point in time. And for the first time, we're also hearing from the adult children of Rob and Michele Reiner. Jake and his sister Romy, they released a statement reading in part, "The horrific and devastating loss of our parents, Rob and Michele Reiner, is something that no one should ever experience." We'll send it back to you.
Morgan Chesky, thank you.
Authorities in Rhode Island are facing mounting pressure to find the gunman who killed 2 students at Brown University last weekend. They've already asked the public for help in finding this person of interest seen in surveillance video near the campus on the day of the shooting. Now investigators are looking for a second person who police say was in proximity to the person of interest. NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin joins us now from Providence, Rhode Island, with the latest on the investigation. Aaron, good morning.
Joe, good morning. It's 5 days in and still no suspect. Authorities once again appealing to the public for help.
I believe that is probably the most intense investigation going on right now in this nation.
This morning, amid growing pressure to capture the suspect in the Brown University mass shooting, Providence police now asking for the public's help in identifying this individual, dressed in a jacket and hoodie, who officials say was in proximity to the person of interest around the time of the shooting.
So we want to make sure that we don't miss anything, and so that's why we're asking the public to help us.
Authorities also releasing this color-coordinated map that shows the areas police have been searching. The green areas indicating the person of interest location before the shooting, and in red, where he was seen after.
We have 1,200 cameras located throughout the campus. We don't publish the locations of the cameras. That would give a map to somebody to evade detection on the cameras.
Facing scrutiny about the university's security systems, Brown writing in a statement Wednesday, "We will do a large-scale systematic security review of the entire campus." As the investigation enters its sixth day, members of the Providence community say they feel uneasy, with the killer still on the loose.
It does get worrying then the longer it goes on.
While some students, including the friend of victim Mohammed Aziz Mirzakov, say security measures need to change.
I do think it would be a good idea for them to implement some stricter security measures to prevent something like this from happening again.
Now, behind me, you see the more modern part of the building. That's the part of the building that has cameras. In back of that is the older portion of the building that does not have cameras. That's where authorities say the shooting took place. Yesterday, the Attorney General said he believes had the shooting taken place in the more modern part of the building, the suspect would have been caught on camera and they'd have arrested him by now. Joe.
All right. Aaron, thank you.
Well, another college community is in shock this morning after a beloved nuclear science professor at MIT was murdered in front of his own home Monday night. Now an urgent search is underway in Boston to find the suspect and determine their motive. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock has the latest on the investigation.
The mystery and heartache hanging over MIT's campus.
So tragic, so frightening, so insane.
After world-renowned professor Nuno Loureiro, the head of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center, was gunned down in the entrance to his building.
Reported gunshots. Father was shot multiple times.
48 hours later, the search for his killer intensifying. The 47-year-old physicist killed in the upscale Boston suburb of Brookline was a father of 3 daughters and a brilliant researcher, according to Bruno Gonçalves, who worked with Loureiro for years in Portugal.
How would you describe the level of shock and devastation in the scientific community when this news was learned?
Well, everyone was extremely shocked by the violence of the event, shocked because he was a really nice person.
Brookline police referring NBC News to the Norfolk County DA's office, which said in a statement, this is an active and ongoing homicide investigation. No further information is being released at this time. While 50 miles away in Providence, authorities knocking down any notion that there could be a link to the tragedy at Brown. The investigating agencies have not yet responded to NBC News' request for information about a possible motive, as Gonçalves just wants clarity.
We need to make justice, but also we need to understand what was behind such an attack and the motivations, because if the motivations was related with the type of work that we are doing, then it's a really concern for the whole community.
Sam Brock, NBC News.
All right, this morning, tens of millions are under wind alerts. At least 7 million in the Pacific Northwest are still facing flood watches ahead of the holiday travel season.
Still a lot going on. Angie Lastman is here in studio tracking everything you need to know with your morning News Now weather. Hi, Angie. Good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. We've got a couple of systems that we're kind of going to be monitoring over the next couple of days to impact some of that travel that you might be getting into ahead of the holiday. Here's the big picture look. Your satellite and radar showing a couple of things. We've got some rain focused across parts of the southeast. We've also got some rain and a wintry mix and some snow and some really strong winds across the midsection of the country. And then out west, we're gearing up for that next kind of atmospheric river event to take shape. So let's start with what we're dealing with in the middle of the country. We've got winter alerts up for 7 million people. It does include parts of the northern plains, and that's part of that broader system that's kind of sliding to the east. This really ramped up some wind yesterday across parts of the Rockies, but you can see today it's the snow showers and the strong winds for the northern plains, and then that cold rain stretching anywhere from the Great Lakes down through parts of the south as it works to the east through the day tomorrow. It brings all of those impacts to folks there. We'll see especially kind of stronger lake effect snow happening there. And then we'll see those blustery winds and some rain across the east coast. I mentioned the wind being quite impressive. We've got 88 million people still under these wind alerts, and it's the middle of the country, some folks out west, and then parts of the northeast. And really yesterday, some impressive wind speeds. We saw wind speeds over 100 miles per hour coming out of Boulder. So not quite as impressive through the day today, but still impactful nonetheless. You've got low 60s, mid 50s for those peak gusts that you could see. Des Moines ending up anywhere into the upper 40s for those peak gusts through Friday. And then I mentioned the Northeast under those wind alerts too, and you can see why. 30, 40, 50 plus mile per hour gusts through Friday. The atmospheric river event that we're now watching just starting to take shape. You can see some of that moisture working on in for folks up and down the West Coast, specifically the Pacific Northwest, where we see those flood watches in effect. These are going to stay with us through Saturday. So we've got additional rainfall from this event kind of moving in, and this wave of rain is going to bring this next wave is going to bring heavy rain and snow to this region. So you guessed it, with additional strong winds, that's going to be a kind of travel headache for folks there. And we already know that we're concerned about levees, we're concerned about landslides, mudslides, all of those things going into the next day or so. And some of that does work its way into parts of California. So this is farther south than that previous atmospheric river event that we were watching. So we'll see Northern California get in on this action and really picking up a kind of good dose of additional rain across these regions, guys. Anywhere from 8 to 10 inches in isolated areas across already saturated ground. So the concern continues for folks across the Pacific Northwest.
Just can't get a break there.
They really can't. Yeah, we're hoping that on the backside of this, we'll get a little bit of time to kind of dry out, but we'll see.
Oh, all right. Thanks, Angie. Of
course.
Much more.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.